Hello retro friends, welcome to Retromaniacs, and today we are dedicated to the Amiga 500. I have a model in front of me that I'll do right now. Open this model. I was told, hopeless case, floppy drive no longer works, and it is not tested whether it works at all. Let's take a look at the whole thing. Yes, I also did a little test. So the Amiga goes. I'm going to install a Gotek Drive here. We'll get to that later, but what exactly do we need if we bought a drive here? I sold mine. Link. You can find it below in the description. Yes, there is the case. That is very important. Because for the Amiga 500, there is the normal drives don't fit in. And that's why there is the case, the cable, the flat cable, and the board for the Gotek Drive. Yes, that would be the basic equipment power cable, but I forgot to mention that's exactly what you need. At this point, it should be mentioned again that the normal Gotek drives do not fit in Amiga 500. Yes, you could of course put it in, but it gets the case right. So I recommend you to use the link below and buy this variant. Yes, and if we look closely again, this is where it ultimately has to come in. We now have to remove the ratur and make the sheet metal. Then we have to screw the housing to the motherboard. That's all. It is important that it fits well. Then the Gotek Drive has an OLED display. As I said, we will go into more detail about it. And yes, you can see it is quite clean here. It's a Revisions 5 board, has a kickstart 12. Yes, it's an older model, and we can run it with the Gotek Drive that you can play with. Again, we don't need an original. That was not the claim of the colleague who wanted it. We built this here like this. This is how it should look later. Exactly simulates a normal Amiga drive, so that life slips along. Do we have to? Screw one from the bottom so that it fits well. Yes, and then we will now go into the installation and construction of the Gotek Drive. And in a moment I will tell you a little more about the Gotek Drive. We will install the necessary software on a USB stick. Let's start building the hardware. That concludes it. Yes, the drive. Can be right. Simply install on the Amiga 500 and now you close the housing and then it looks as follows. So you can see the display on the left and there would still be enough space for the USB stick. Right now we have that installed and next. The USB stick is required. And that's where the software comes in. And the individual games, we're doing everything on the PC now and continuing there.
Now that we have installed the Gotek Drive, always MIGA 500, here are a few basics for many retro fans. FlashFloppy is the absolute game changer and not without reason. FlashFloppy is a floppy disk drive emulator. For the widely used Gotek hardware, imagine this. You connect the Gotek unit to your old computer almost like a normal floppy drive. And the difference is that you can simply use modern USB sticks with disk images instead of old and reliable floppy disks. This means that you can archive your collected game collection and retro programs as disk images and use them comfortably on your retro computer. In our case, there are more in the Mega 500, but there are still others possible like Atari ST and so on. FlashFloppy is particularly strong due to its versatility. It supports a wide range of retro computers, synthesizers, and even industrial machines, whether it's the different image formats or a flexible track layout tools. FlashFloppy can read and write almost anything, and I think that's the absolute advantage. Yes, and the best, FlashFloppy is completely open source and free. You know what?
That means?
Most of the code is public domain, so you can freely download the program, adapt it, even use it on Gotek devices that you want to resell, only with a reference to the license, of course. The Gotek drives are usually compatible with a 24-pin connector. Important: the different Gotek models often differ only in color, housing, design, microcontroller. The formats that FlashFloppy supports are almost unlimited. A brief overview: there are models with simple numerical display, the display which disk image is currently selected. You can easily switch between different disk images, even if it's not as innovative with a 2-digit display. But it's easier with the new models, which have an OLED display or a rotary head, via which the Mishis can select by name. A real upgrade for those who switch frequently. Then there is the microcontroller thing. Older Gotek ship with STM32F105 chips. But today we find all models in the artery controller, either AUF32F415 or AUF32F435. If you buy a new Gotek, I recommend you the AUF32F3 Patch 5. It is faster and offers more S1, which is useful for extensive simulations and future firmware features. And another tip from my side: some models are not compatible with FlashFloppy. For example, the UFA models or variants with a 26-pin header. The laptop fits, so make sure that the device has a 34-pin header. In our case, we use this Gotek drive, which fits perfectly in a Mega 500. There are some drives you have to pay attention to them, then you can no longer close the case from a Mega 500. But with this, in this variant, you can do it nicely in a league.
500.
Install and close to the housing again. Here are a few things to consider, on which I will now enter how to connect the OLED display and how to set the chamber best. Here I gave you a small overview of how to connect the OLED display best. Yes, here you see there is one cable for the electricity and the others have to fit together as well. Yes, it's best to use this picture to connect to the cables that it comes with, get the OLED display, and in the end it should look like this. Yes, as you can see the plugs are different, that's okay.
Pay attention once more.
What else should you pay attention to? So in this package, which I link below, everything is included, but if you tinker around for good devices, an OLED display with an I2C interface is ideal. This can be recognized by the 4-pin connection labeled GND, VTC, SCL, and SDA. Such displays are available in various resolutions, the most common being 128x32 and 128x64. With display sizes from 0.191 to 2.42 inches. A larger screen displays more, but it also requires more space where you can fit it. Yes, if you decide for a larger display, those from 2 inches are often configured for SPI, then you may have to make a few small changes to switch it to I2C, which usually means removing or relocating a resistor and possibly soldering some pins. And in addition, The CS and C pins must be set to ground and the reset pin to 3.3 volts. Also, the 2.23-inch displays with 128/32 resolution sometimes require special configuration so that everything is very correct. Of course. In this case, you can set the settings display type in the FFCFG, which is the file you install on the USB stick.
OLED 100.
By adjusting 28 out of 32 stash, we will address it as soon as you insert the USB stick. Yes, basically display should be a great upgrade for the Gotek hardware. So you can really also between the individual diskettes or games.
Benefits.
Now let's build the pin settings on the board. If you have a flat cable, normal, with which you connect the drive to the Amiga 500, then use S0 and only S0. That should work. If you have a twisted flat cable, then you have to use M0.
If you drive the Gotek,
So then would like to use as an expansion floppy drive.
may you proceed.
Set the jumper to S1, and just like J5, nothing is documented about others. The rally signal is functional.
The jumpers are loud.
Gotek is only compatible with models SR SFR 1M44 Tool 100K. And yes, I would leave everyone else out first. These are the three most important ones you use.
It should be so.
As I installed it now, we will use the S0 port or pin. Basically, this is such a good basis for you. Of course, you can do much more with it. And I have already touched on a little bit that you can attach different OLED displays, but you can do many other things, and that would be extremely blowing up the frame here today. If you are interested, then feel free to leave a commentator. Then I will go a little more into what we can do with the board and with the software FlashFloppy. Yes, but let's focus on the basics first and then proceed from there. In order to work optimally, I always put the drive from the USB stick.
And please remember that the
USB stick is FAT2 and 3.
must be formatted. You can do this with this program via format.
Excel, you see I have an X.
It contains FAT now.
The USB stick is formatted, then just leave everything like this on start and says OK to
Delete all files and then it formats the USB stick.
back. Use FAT32. At step 6, you'll need the software. Find it below in the comments. Here there are several.
Variants, once there is a stable version, then there is experimental version and
I recommend the stable one first.
Download version. You can experiment again later.
It will take you down the file.
When you download the file,
Unpack these and then
you get it.
this.
Folder. In the folder there is
Various files we...
only need 2.
Unless you want to flash the drive, you don't want that in this case because it already is.
Flashed means we're going to family.
Obtain this specific file.
Audio good.
File.
In addition, we need one more file specifically.
Another file is required. This should be precisely the 2 files you need alongside.
These 2 files,
Are we able to control the correct drive already?
we lie down now.
Mal hier auf den Desktop nochmal, dann holen wir uns den USB-Stick und
Could you copy the 2 files over?
and it is important that both files,
Also in the startup directory.
USB sticks are exactly like my current situation here.
please do that too.
Following this, you can certainly insert the USB stick in whichever orientation you prefer.
I want to put mine down now.
Folder, games,
That is where I was lying.
all my games.
I then created a directory for applications.
Take Workbench, for example.
Or any other kind of coding you do.
Needed later, and certain websites feature an auto swap function.
Files.
Here, for example, I had,
Took one as an auto swap.
we put them in games, then we find them all.
In here.
Auto swapping system,
It's easy without needing to make changes.
the disks, the game.
Simply pass through.
Durch-
With the setup of the USB stick, so now we start the Amiga 500, and if everything goes well, we go exactly. Let's get into this system. Now the software starts. It reads the situation and off we go. What can I do here, you ask? Of course, there's plenty online.
Tutorials.
So this is not the first, you will find a lot. There are also a lot that go very deep into the software FlashFloppy. Maybe now here are just the first tips from my side. So if you're on halfway, then you already have an overview of the individual possibilities that there are here that you can do. Of course, it's back again. You can confirm everything with enter or fire key of the stick. And yes, what is perhaps also very interesting is that I can still change the colors. We can try that right away. That would be then with F2. You can look at it right away. Yes, and the important thing for you is that you should remember is F10, because what I said is save, and I reboot, and then what I entered in the sample will be loaded automatically. Let's take a closer look at that. So this is the start screen again, as I said, and here is still from my side to mention again, you can, of course, I have already done that. I have one with the original drive. I bought a separate second drive, the DF1, and in the DF1 I also installed a Gotek Drive in the case. That means my second drive is the Gotek Drive. So I now also have a game. So I have the original game of Blues Brothers. I then saved it as an ADF file. And accordingly, as you can see again, I can now also select this via Faith. But we just want to stick to minimum time. First of all, what you actually needed, it's simple that we go back to the view here first. I have.
Yes, said that.
We need both files to start, which we have recorded on the USB stick. Then we created two places, once games, once programs, and we also go games. But you can make the cursor over the keyboard like this, and then we see Monkey Island and Bruce Brothers here. Bruce Brother, I just said we're dedicating ourselves to Monkey Island first, and there are SWAT games. That means these are diskettes. So that means it will be, these are several diskettes again, as you can see here. And the good thing is that, and with the auto spot, you don't have to manually change the floppies on the good drive, but automatically do the weather on the page where the software downloads. Below, already noted, you will also find a link to the AutoSpot parts. There is unfortunately only a handful of games, but you can use that there. There is a link, and there is also the page where I can download the games. Yes? After you put your games in the folder game, then as I said, you will find it here, and then we go to the first disk. Let's get Monkey Island now. You do returned, and then we have the individual slots here to make it very easy for you. Imagine each slot here is a floppy drive. Can we say yes? And I now put in the first floppy drive. I now put Monkey Island 01. Now we have that in there, and of course we want to occupy the second drive with the second disk, exactly, and then we will also do third. This is exactly what the fourth disk has. So now we have created 4 disks. Now from the principle, you just saw there are 2 buttons in the routing drive. If I save and restart, it starts directly at slot 1. That means it loads Monkey Island with disk 1. Jetzt gehen wir nicht, dass auch SO-Swap-Files sind, sondern ich musste manuell selbst. Then you can see the floppies with the 2 buttons, then switch up and down on the display. So that means if you ask me to go to the second disk, I press the button on the right, and then it automatically inserts the second disk. If after a short time he says again, please insert the first disk again, then I would press the left button on the Gotek Drive, and then it goes down 1 again, so to drive 1 and... So now you can, of course, still go. Now you could say, okay, drive 051 and go 05. Let's now put Plus Brothers in. Yes. And there I go up. There is 1 point. Yes, there are 2 points. If I go to 1 point, yes, then I don't get out at all. So I have to go for 2 points. Now I just did better marketing, so, and then I'll be here plus brothers, so put it in drive 5. What's the point? Yes, when I save and restart, now I have to select number 5 on the drive so that it starts correctly. That means there are now boot locks in place 5, and so I can now put my individual games in from top to bottom and can then always swipe until I'm a point at some point. Wait, the game is so I can do that, and when changing discs I just do it with buttons, with the buttons. We'll test that right away. With Monkey Island, of course, you've had F2. You can change the colors here, so that's depending on your taste. You can change it exactly, but you don't necessarily need that. The important thing is when you're finished here. Then he simply presses the F10 button, briefly displaying saving selection and then rebooting. And in this case, the Mega restarts, and then he automatically inserts the first floppy that I told him. And that's here in this case, Monkey Island. Exactly here is also Bumper Truck, so maybe Robbie Bumper Truck 15, which means it was made especially for this. And of course it's very cool that I don't have to change floppies at all anymore, because it often happens in the game that I sometimes have floppy 3, then again floppy 1, then again floppy 4, then he wants to have number 2, and I don't need that in this case, and the game has also arrived. Right then he sees that it works well, and yes, now the moment will come when I say I want to play Blues Brothers, and yet I don't. Then you can press the buttons until you are at 5, and select blood there, and then simply reset. And when I do that right now, then I turn it on to auto boot, and when I have auto boot set, and then press reset, what happens then? Yes, I can enter the menu again, and in the menu I can insert my diskettes from the front again. Now it's better to get back into the intention again. You saw I selected green. Did it stay then? Yes. And if I go to Brothers again, for example, and then of course you can also use the left and right buttons. You can always jump to chapter by chapter. Yes, if I go to Lava's Boat again, I can adjust certain things again. I can actually do that. I have to go to Bus Lavas. But if I press F3 here now, I can still make floppy settings. That means I have the sound. And when the LCD standby mode goes, how many seconds and so on, I can do that here too. Set things again with F3 if he wanted to do that. We won't do anything here for now. Exactly. Basically it was. So it was. Yes, if I turn on now, we can try the same thing now, and we don't need it now. But if I go there now and select Blue Screvres again, reset that just so you know there's no product here. There it is too. Those are the Blue Screvres. Yes, that was it from Protec. As I said, the software interface is self-explanatory, and therefore there is not much to tell. Yes, if you liked it, feel free to follow us here at Retromanix at MadtixLab. If you have any questions, want to leave comments, or see positive comments, please leave comments there. And yes, I wish you a pleasant day. That's it with Retromanix, Amiga 500, Gotek Drive, and bye.